Welcome to Leadership Reimagined, where game-changing conversations are reshaping the world of work. I'm Janice Ellig, the CEO and founder of Ellig Group, Executive Search Advisors, where we are reimagining search through our long-standing commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I am delighted to welcome Maurice Jones, Chief Executive Officer of OneTen, to discuss today's topic, a bold dream to impact social equality. OneTen is a coalition of leading chief executives and their companies who are coming together to upskill, hire, and promote 1 million Black individuals who do not yet have a 4-year degree into sustainable jobs with opportunities for advancement over the next 10 years. Prior to joining OneTen in 2021, Maurice was the president of the Local Initiative Support Corporation, one of the country's largest organizations supporting projects to revitalize communities and catalyze economic opportunity for residents. And before that, he served as Secretary of Commerce and Trade for the Commonwealth of Virginia. He was Deputy Secretary for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, President of Pilot Media, Commissioner of the Virginia Department of Social Services, and Deputy Chief of Staff to then Virginia Governor, as well as other high-ranking positions in public service. He has been a very busy man in social equality. And Maurice, welcome. I'm delighted you could join us today with your busy schedule.
Thank you, Janice. It's nice to be with you, so thanks for having me.
Well, the OneTen Coalition, as I understand it, is to really know those barriers to entry that Black workers face in America. And as CEO, you're leading that mission to help 1 million Black Americans in 10 years. So tell us about the genesis of this idea, the response you've had to the initiative, and what you and member companies are hoping to achieve and how to get to that goal.
If you want to understand the genesis, I got to take you back to 2020. If you remember, in 2020, we had an outbreak of a pandemic that we're still fighting that had a pretty disproportionately adverse impact on Black communities and other communities of color. That was followed by a recession that was triggered in part by that pandemic, which also had a disproportionately adverse impact on Black communities and other communities of color. And then we had a series of shootings, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and most especially and most searing of all was the murder of Mr. George Floyd in broad daylight, broadcast over and over and over again for not only all of the U.S. to see it, but frankly, all of the world. Well, those series of events moved a lot of people to look at our country through the lens of asking the question, are we who we want to be? Are we even who we think we are? A group of CEOs in corporate America answered that question with a resounding no, that we're not a more perfect union or becoming a more perfect union, that we've got some work to do. They concluded that the private sector had a big role to play in that. To their credit, and the they in this is Ken Frazier, at the time CEO of Merck, Ken Chenault, formerly CEO of American Express and now at General Catalyst. They brought in teammates, Jenny Rometty, who at the time was CEO of IBM, Kevin Scherer, who had been the CEO of Amgen, and Charles Phillips, who had been at Oracle and Infor and now recognized. They brought in those teammates and said, what can we do? How do we in corporate America lead an initiative, a gathering, a movement indeed, that helps us become a more perfect union? And what they did, they looked around and they said, look, what corporate America does better than anyone is create jobs and jobs that are quality. And you can't get rid of the disparities that are tearing us apart unless quality jobs are at the heart of it. And that's how they focused on the jobs piece. They went further, though. They looked at the data, and what they discovered was that if you looked at jobs that paid $60,000 and more in our country, that what you would discover is on paper, 79% of them required a 4-year degree for you to even be considered for the job. Indeed, if you look at jobs that paid $40,000 or more, and by the way, this was before COVID, so it's actually been exacerbated since then. But if you looked at jobs that paid $40,000 or more, on paper, 71% of them required a 4-year degree. And yet, when you look at Black talent in the workforce, ages 25 and above, 76% of us do not yet have a 4-year degree. And so when they looked at the data, they concluded rightly that we have a systemic barrier in the form of a credential, a 4-year college degree that literally is standing in the way of people earning their way into the middle class. And so they concluded that they wanted to attack that systemic barrier and move corporate America and hopefully the rest of the country to a place where we were using a skills first approach to hiring, a skills first approach to promotion. And thus they came up with the bold vision: hire and promote 1 million Black talent who don't yet have 4-year degrees into family sustaining jobs and careers over the next 10 years. So a long-winded answer to your query, but that's really those are the origins of this movement. And the real truth of the matter is, but for 2020, there would probably not be a OneTen.
Oh my goodness, what a silver lining here, right? For getting more women and underrepresented groups, particularly the Black community, into those skill-based jobs. So how are you doing it? Because the first year, I understand there were 26,000 new hires and 4,000 promotions for Black Americans. So congratulations. But how are you doing this if people don't have the 4-year degree? They come into a company. Is there a mentoring program, or how are you having the success of getting those hires in and those promotions to happen?
We're really delighted with the results of year one. In fact, those results actually were achieved in 9 months, from March to December of last year. And the way in which this is happening is it starts with the companies. The companies are doing 2 or 3 things that really, really are moving this journey along. First and foremost, they are putting on the table the current jobs that they have that are both family sustaining, meaning they pay living wages and above, and they don't require a 4-year degree. The other thing about those jobs is they're not at risk of being automated out of existence in 6 months. And they require less than 5 years experience for one to be competitive. Companies already have jobs that have those attributes, and they are putting those jobs at the service of this journey. That's number one. But even more powerful and frankly requires even harder work, they are recredentialing existing jobs. And what I mean by that is they're removing 4-year degree requirements from jobs that are family sustaining, where the degree is not relevant to the skills that you need in order to do the job. And they are moving their mindsets and changing job descriptions to relate those job descriptions to skills as opposed to credentials. And that really is the big work to be done for the entirety of the OneTen journey, is recredentialing, removing that barrier and moving to a skills first approach to hiring and a skills first approach to promotion. The third piece of the work that they're doing is they've agreed to become part of a community of practice. And that community of practice is basically we curate a forum for the CEOs and the CHROs to come together at least 3 times a year to look at and to share best practices and to understand better what works, those things that we have to be great at in order to really achieve this mission. And the CEOs are committed to that community of practice.
How do you get this pool of candidates? I'm in the search business, right? And I love the idea that you're bringing people more into the entry level, and then can rise up in an organization. But how do you find them? How do they come to you? And then are you then presenting them to companies across all sectors?
That's where I was headed. So you got the companies first, right? And the companies are putting the jobs on the table, re-credentialing, participating in the community of practice. The second piece of the ecosystem, and that's what I want to stress, this is an ecosystem job. The second piece of the ecosystem is the talent development organizations that are in the business of sourcing and equipping talent to be successful in the jobs. And by that, I mean, we have 65 corporate partners right now and growing. We actually have over 100 educational enterprises, boot camps, military transition programs, 2-year HBCUs, training programs, community colleges. Those are the enterprises that we are collaborating with to both recruit the talent and prepare the talent for the in-demand jobs. The third component of the ecosystem is obviously the talent. The talent, as I mentioned, we recruit through the talent developers, but we also are forging other partnerships and going directly to the talent, marketing and through education outreach. And then the fourth piece of this ecosystem are the what we call talent support organizations that can provide coaches and mentors and childcare and transportation assistance, the things that we all need to be great at whatever it is we're trying to do. The work of the coalition, of the OneTen Coalition, is to knit together that ecosystem and then scale it. And the scaling that we are doing, we have two vehicles that we're utilizing for that. First is we have a technology marketplace where the companies can post jobs, the talent developers can post courses and boot camps. Talent can come on and see both and be matched with both. And talent support organizations can also publish their offerings as well. So that virtual platform works all across the country. The second way that we're doing it is through our on the ground, if you will, presence in about 25 markets around the country where there's an overlap of talent and job demand, where we're knitting together these players in this ecosystem the old fashioned way, creating, curating relationships and matches and the like. And to your point, or to your last question, the companies involved in this coalition are across industries. We've got finance, we've got higher ed, we've got retail, we've got technology, we've got manufacturing. So it's a diversity of industries, and intentionally so, because we believe this for this movement to have the impact that we're looking for, that it has to be diverse in its membership and in the industries. And the other piece that I was going to mention is that the types of jobs here are are just also multifaceted. There's sales jobs at work here. There are retail jobs. There are healthcare jobs. There are manufacturing jobs. So it is, no question about it, a pluralistic journey with a lot of players and a lot of diversity. But it is the only way that you do something like this at this kind of scale. It's about curating and scaling an ecosystem.
This is a phenomenal model for underrepresented groups to follow. Oh, to our listeners out there, whether it be a human resources officer, a CEO, a big not-for-profit like the YMCA that serves, 20 million Americans, 10 million youth, they want to align with you in this wonderful ecosystem that you've got going. How do they get in touch with you, or where do they go?
The main place they can go is to our website, OneTen.org. The other thing is my email is out there, right? Maurice.jones@110.org. They can shoot me an email and I can make sure I get them to the right place. But yeah, to your point, we need more companies who will commit to this mission and this journey. We need talent development organizations across the country who can help us equip this talent for these jobs. We definitely need talent. And then lastly, we need wraparound support providers. We're also having in conversations with philanthropic organizations and with government organizations because we want partners to help us scale, in particular, the talent supports available to our Black talent and also the trainers. And so, yeah, any and all of the above who have an interest, we definitely want to hear from
Well,
you.
you have some phenomenal leaders behind you, CEOs who really seen this as a big mission. Anything that you look at today that's a major challenge that you would like to see go more quickly?
The biggest challenge is a mindset challenge. Well, let me give you an illustration. So, I was in conversation with one of our teammates who works in the human resources area in one of our companies. And he said to me, look, when I hire somebody who has a 4-year degree and they don't work out, he says, well, people will say, look, not everybody works out. We know that. We know we're taking a chance. But when I hire someone who doesn't have a 4-year degree and they don't work out, then people respond, what were you thinking? Of course they weren't going to work out. And so, it's that kind of mentality that we're trying to change here. And so, what we know is we can re-credential as many jobs as there are stars in the sky, but unless and until people really, really believe in the merit of skills first approaches, then we're going to have people default to the reliance that they've had on the proxy of a credential to tell them something. Actually, when you effectively look at it, the credential really isn't used in a lot of cases to tell you whether someone can do the job or not. It's actually used in a lot of cases just to weed people out. The biggest challenge I think we have across the board is a mindset shift. The second big challenge that I would highlight is the one that I described. It's how you build and sustain a robust ecosystem because jobs by themselves are not enough, are not sufficient. We have to have quality jobs. We have to have trainers. We have to have talent who take a chance and get out there and raise their hands for promotions and for these jobs. And we have to have transportation and childcare and all the like for this to really succeed. And so it is making sure that every piece of that ecosystem is present in the volume and in the places where we need them to be.
This is quite a discussion of how we're going to change our social system, too. I want to remind our audience we are listening to Maurice Jones, CEO of OneTen, and the topic is a bold dream to impact social equality. And the topics we cover, like today's, are all current, and a new topic with a new game changer is released every month. And it's a great way to stay current on relevant issues happening around us, and certainly how we all can make a difference, Maurice, in what you're doing in terms of Black Americans really into sustainable jobs and a better life, and therefore a better society overall. So I want to go back to you as the leader of OneTen. What led you to this? I mean, you have a career in, the not-for-profit world. You've worked on social change throughout your lifetime here. But what was it about OneTen that said, I want to take on this huge challenge?
Look, I think there are a couple of things. One, there's the personal piece. I was raised by two grandparents, grandfather born in 1914, grandmother born in 1919. Because they were Black, we were actually referred to as colored in those days. Because they were colored, my grandfather went to school for 6 years in a barn and then went out and went to work. And my grandmother, because she lived close to town, this was rural Virginia in the early 20th century, was able to walk to school, to a segregated school for coloreds, and got her high school diploma after 11 years. Well, the two of them raised me, raised their own children, and were for the for my upbringing the most transformative presences in my life, right? And were brilliant, no question about it. And their brilliance was not enjoyed by all who could have benefited from it because of the barriers that were put in front of them, overwhelmingly because of their race. And so now to have a chance to be at work to remove a systemic barrier for Black talent without 4-year degrees, this is like another way to say thank you to the two of them. So, I have that personal piece. The other piece I would tell you is I think one of the greatest risks to the American democratic experiment are the disparities that we have in our country that are widening. And one of the most, I think, or one of the riskiest is the wealth disparity that largely breaks down along race and place. And this effort is definitely an effort that must succeed if we're going to have a chance of closing that racial wealth gap. And when I saw that we had these corporations behind it, my view was we can do this thing. And so, yeah, I saw this as an opportunity as opposed to anything else. 76% of Black talent in the workforce right now do not have a 4-year degree, but that number is actually 66% of all workers in the workforce. So this systemic barrier is, yes, disproportionately impacting Black talent, but it's actually impacting all talent cohorts. So our belief here is we fix this issue for Black talent, we're actually going to have a more inclusive and productive and reliable and loyal workforce, period. And that it's in the interest of the companies, is in the interest of families, and it's in the interest of the country from the standpoint of what we need to do to remain globally competitive in the international economy. So all of that for me was part of why this was appealing and remains.
Led by Ken Chenault, Ken Frazier, Ginny Rometty, and other CEOs, as you've mentioned, you got in there to not waste the opportunity. The pandemic, the economic downturn, all got together and said, hey, we can do something here for Black Americans. So you didn't waste that crisis, and it is an opportunity. So what you're doing will really have an impact over the next 10 and 20 years, right? This is not a short-term fix.
This is not a short term. No, this is a movement. No question about it.
It's a movement. Yeah. So really congratulations on all that you're doing. So what would be your advice to young people out there today entering the workforce? What skills do you think are going to be most needed? And is this digital age impacting? Is it going to be a positive or a negative for youth entering the workforce today?
I think the digital age is something that's creating a lot of new opportunities, right? It's creating more opportunities for virtual work. It's creating more kinds of jobs. It's actually creating many more jobs that are technology jobs that definitely don't need a 4-year degree, that you can go to a coding boot camp, for example, a good one, and in 8 weeks' time be ready for a job that enables you to earn a living. So I think the opportunities that this age is putting on the table are really abundant. And my advice to all prospective employees in the workplace is first and foremost, get prepared, right? You definitely need to get through high school and look for organizations that can equip you with skills post high school, whether it's community colleges or the boot camps, military service, so definitely concentrate on getting prepared. Secondly, do everything in your power to find mentors. You want to benefit from the experience and the wisdom that others can share with you. So definitely search out and cultivate mentors and be a great mentee, meaning show up and listen and be curious. Those are the kinds of things I would tell you. And then the last thing I would tell you is raise your hand. Take a risk, go for opportunities. If you're already within a company, raise your hand for promotions. If you're not, you need to definitely boldly and aggressively pursue opportunities that interest you. Those would be the things that I would share with folks today.
And it is a candidate's market today. There is a war for talent. It is hard to find women, underrepresented groups to fill many of these positions. So, with your effort here and your mission, I would think in a way there's an opportunity. Again, given the mindset is opened and they don't have the need to have a college degree and people will mentor candidates in a company, I would think there's an opportunity for more Black Americans to secure jobs and move up, correct?
Absolutely. Opportunities are abundant now. And this is part of a movement. There are 10 million plus open jobs. I can't think of a more promising time for candidates than now. And that's why my advice is be bold.
Well, I want to be bold with you and help you in this effort because it's really important in the long term to having, again, greater diversity at the top of our companies and therefore greater corporate governance. So let's go ahead 10 years from now, Maurice, and what is that collective impact on society? Are there three things that you see and hope for?
Well, certainly at least 1 million hires and promotions, right, of Black talent into family sustaining jobs. Second piece is a workplace where we don't have a credential that is a barrier to people being able to compete for a job. But indeed, we have a skills first culture in our companies, in corporate America, that is concentrating on skills needed on day one and the skills needed in year two and year three and year four and year five, and how we make sure people have access to the training and the trainers needed to acquire those skills. And we have a complete elimination of the racial wealth gap in this country.
I think that those are wonderful objectives for us all to try and achieve. So I just want to ask any parting words?
This is definitely not a time to play small ball. Now is the time to be bold. We need corporate America to be bold. We need our government enterprises to be bold. We need our fellow brothers and sisters to be bold. Let's really work hard to create a more perfect union.
Maurice Jones, thank you for joining us today and sharing your story on a bold dream to impact social equality. I couldn't agree more with what you're looking to achieve. And within that 10 years, we can all make it happen. Why would we waste the talent of Black Americans? We can be a much better society when everybody is fully employed. So thank you so much for being with us today. And I hope our audience will be visiting your website and again, helping to change this social injustice. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in to another game-changing conversation on Leadership Reimagined. You can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or visit our website at elliggroup.com. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you, Maurice Jones.
Thanks for having me. All the best.